Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Hulu review, and today I'm going to be talking about Rosaline. Rosaline is an American romantic comedy based on a novel inspired by the classic Shakespeare story Romeo and Juliet, and tells the story of Rosaline, a woman in Verona, Italy who is madly in love with Romeo. However, the romance takes a turn when she freezes after Romeo says he loves her, to which he responds by giving her the cold shoulder. After doing some investigating behind Romeo's behavior, Rosaline discovers that he's been secretly meeting a new lover in the form of Juliet, who happens to be Rosaline's cousin. Following this, Rosaline does what she can to sabotage the relationship so she can get back at her ex. I really enjoyed watching this, which surprised me because I normally don't like watching period pieces. It's a more comedic take on the traditionally tragic love story, and although it has its issues in this regard, it still does well at telling an old story in a new way. Kaitlyn Dever gives a really fun performance in the role of the title character Rosaline. She has a feisty personality when it comes to dealing with people who challenge her, which often results in hilarious dialogue, and it's equally funny to see her act out her petty revenge toward Romeo in the same vein. She isn't just a source of comic relief though, she actually has a decently fleshed out backstory about how she wants to travel, avoid marriage, and in general yearning for freedom, which conflicts with the views of almost everyone else in the movie, and this made me want to root for her to see her succeed. And as fun as her revenge schemes and snarkiness can be at times, she also comes to learn an important lesson from these things, in that she can never truly be happy trying to make others unhappy. It's a simple message, but it gets the point across well without being overly dramatic. The romance is what helps keep the story going, in part because it plays out from multiple angles. The first and perhaps most obvious one is with Romeo and Juliet, who were mostly fun to see, although not exactly riveting, and this is simply due to the fact that their love story is more or less the same love at first sight scenario that everyone has seen before. By contrast, Rosaline's relationship with Dario was much more compelling. I don't know if he ever appeared in the original story or not, but Dario was a great foil to go along with Rosaline. He always calls her out on her actions and behavior, and this results in even more witty dialogue while also steering her towards self-realization. Lots of romantic threads are used to maintain tension throughout the story in order to keep it interesting. Between Rosaline having and losing Romeo, Juliet being with Romeo, Rosaline trying to get between them, and Dario trying to stop her while bonding with her at the same time, there's always something going on between them to hold the viewer's attention. Much of this tension is lighthearted in nature though, which is something I appreciate. It avoids being yet another retelling of the same tragic love story that everyone already knows about, and instead puts a more positive and upbeat spin onto the characters to shake things up, which is bolstered by the soundtrack and of course the comedy. The comedy is what makes this movie so much fun to watch. There are tons of great lines used by Rosaline and the other characters, and they all get caught in a series of unfortunate events that escalate over time, and it's hilarious to see them try to close the can of worms that they've opened. The movie almost approaches full-on parody mode with how it lampoons certain aspects of the Romeo and Juliet story. My favorite example in this regard is the scene where Juliet plans to fake her death. The way she explains her plan and how Rosaline goes on a rant over how bad of an idea it is amazing. It was so entertaining to see the movie not be afraid to poke fun at the source material while also taking care not to disrespect it. What helps this movie's take on Romeo and Juliet stay so fresh is how clever it is with blending modern dialogue within its classical setting. And this too is occasionally used to great effect with the comedy. Hearing the song All By Myself playing on violin while Rosaline sulks over Romeo caught me off guard a lot harder than I thought it would, and it didn't feel tacky in how it was used. This being said, I do think that the movie can be a bit too modern with its dialogue at times. I can't remember any specific examples off the top of my head, but there were a few times when characters spoke to each other using words that were clearly from the 21st century, and it kind of pulled me out of the movie a bit. To be honest though, I had more of an issue with how inconsistent the character accents were. Some have American accents, others are British, while others are something else entirely, and it all just felt off. I never got a sense of understanding over the diversity of characters in Verona and how they spoke. The way Verona looks, however, helps to offset the way its people sound. The set and costume designs look beautiful and appear to be authentic to the era it's supposed to represent. The attention to detail behind them reminded me of the adaptation of Jane Austen's Persuasion, though this movie is much better by comparison. If there was one major complaint I could say about this movie, is that its main premise takes a while to get going. Rosaline's journey doesn't take off until about 20 minutes into the movie, which doesn't leave a lot to enjoy with an already short runtime of 90 minutes, and the pacing falters a bit later on too, with Romeo and Juliet not having much to do after they meet. I would also say that the plot is predictable, but that's kind of a moot point considering the original story is hundreds of years old. There's enough new twists and turns with Rosaline to keep it interesting, and the movie does a good job balancing between being funny and being serious when it needs to be. And while Rosaline is very much the main focus of the story, I was impressed with how well it balanced its other characters as well. Whether it involves Rosaline's dad, personal nurse, or her devious cousin Tybalt, it feels like virtually every character in this movie has their role to play in the story, no matter how big or small, and it makes the movie much more enjoyable as a result. It even features a light pro-feminist element to the story without being preachy, with how female characters resent being told what to do by their male superiors, while also learning to ask help from them when it's appropriate. It's another way how the movie cleverly modernizes the source material it's based on, while still being faithful to it. Overall, Rosaline is a great romantic comedy that takes a classic tragedy and turns it on its head, while also respecting its roots. If you like rom-coms that are set in historical periods, and you're curious to see one that weaves new and old elements together, you should definitely check this out. Between its modernisms and how odd the pacing can be, the story can get awkward at times, but Kaitlyn Dever's performance, the bright tone, and hilarious comedy more than make up for it. It was refreshing to see a much more energetic period piece compared to what I've seen in the past, and I hope to see more like these in the future. What did you think about this movie? Did you like how it shook up the Romeo and Juliet story, or did you think it went too far with it? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of Rosaline. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the American fantasy, The School for Good and Evil. Bye bye!